Alright, welcome to part 3 of CAMH REDCap survey training. As always, I'll just start by pointing out that we're using REDCap version 9.1.16 here. So if you're using a different version of REDCap, things might look slightly different, but same principles should still apply here basically. So in our first video we looked at setting up our survey and took a stroll through some of our survey settings. And in the second video we looked at the participant list and different ways to deploy a survey. And in this video we're going to look at automating things with the automated survey invitation feature. And this is where things start to get really interesting and also kind of more confusing as things become more complex here. So hopefully this video should help clear some of that up. So first of all, if we're going to be using automatic survey invitations or automated survey invitations, we're going to need more than one survey. So we could go ahead and just create a new instrument if we wanted, but we'll just use this opportunity to show the REDCap shared library, which is an official repository from the REDCap developers, or Vanderbilt University I suppose, where they maintain this curated list of assessments or pre-programmed forms, and there's a lot of them. So all you need to do is search for the form that you're interested in. Today we're going to take the PHQ-9 and can just scroll through here. And here's the PHQ-9. You'll see that it has 2,300, almost 2,400 downloads, so it's relatively popular. We've got all of this great information here about who the contact person is, a description of the assessment, some acknowledgements and terms of use, in fact, a whole bunch of stuff here. But basically all we need to do is click this import into my REDCap project button and we'll get some sort of terms of use here. So make sure you read through that quite a bit, but you need to click the I agree button, and if all goes according to plan you can add it into your project. It will ask you for the name, and I'm perfectly happy with this, so let's go ahead and say add. Fantastic. Okay, so let's go to the previous page and you'll see now that we have our PHQ-9 imported into our project, and we can just take a quick little stroll through here to make sure that it looks okay, and I think it does. But the one thing that we will need to do is actually enable this as a survey. And we can go through and set up all of these survey settings again, but a handy little feature to have. Well, first of all, we need to save these changes just to lock in enabling this as a survey. But instead of having to go through and modify all those settings again, what we can do is go into our smoking screener and just copy all of these settings over to our next survey here. So we can choose what we want. I'm just going to select everything and we'll say copy design settings. So that'll save us a bit of time and will ensure that things are consistent, which is nice. Oh, shoot. Okay, what I also should have done while I was in there is you'll see this little down pointing arrow here, and that's because we previously set this survey up to auto-continue to the next survey, which is fine if that's what you want to do. If you want everybody to do the patient health questionnaire 9, that's fine, but that's not what this video is about. We're looking at automatic survey invitations, so I'm going to go in and disable that by unchecking this box here, and I will just save that. Great. Okay, so the way that we want to use automatic survey invitations is in our particular smoking screener here, let's say we only want to send this to people A, who have completed this screener, and B, have answered yes that they do want to quit smoking. It's a strange maybe example in this case, but don't pay too much attention to the actual assessments themselves. The idea is the method here. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we have the ability to email the participant, and that is indeed the case having set up our participant list here. So you can't really use automatic survey invitations from a public survey link unless you set up, or unless you collect their email address as part of the form, which we're not going to look at in this video. Because you do start to get into some more real privacy concerns there, because you'll be, in that case, you'll be directly linking the participant's email address, or in other words, potentially some personal identifying information directly to their survey data, which is not always a great situation. However, with the survey list, we do have sort of a delineation between the actual data and our list of participants here. So the point is, you want to have their email address entered because that's what the automatic survey invitation is going to be calling from. So let's go back to the designer and click the automatic survey invitation button here. And if you've watched the previous video, this might look familiar to you because this pop-up box here essentially has all of the same features or the same options that we configured when we were using the compose email invitation field in the participant list. It's essentially all the same stuff, but in this case we're just going to be automating things. So you've got your from field, your to field, which again is going to draw that email address from the participant list, and then your email that you're going to send, so whatever subject you want to use. And again, just noting the importance of having the survey link and survey URL smart variables here. As long as those are there, you can type in whatever you want. By default it says please take the survey, but I'm not creative enough to think of something new to say, but if you wanted to create a more personalized message, you could put something there. But this is where the magic of automatic survey invitations, or automated survey invitations, comes into play. So, like I said before, we want to only send the PHQ-9 to people who have completed the smoking screener and who have indicated that they want to stop. So firstly, we can indicate that first part by saying when the following survey is completed, and choosing smoking screener. We only have one option here because this is the only other survey in our project. If we had multiple surveys, or multiple forms basically, you would see them all in this list here. And then we also had that conditional logic, so we want to say, I can't remember what the variable name was. I think it might have been ssquit. Yes, perfect. ssquit equals 1 for yes. And we get this little valid marker here, which is nice. So that's it for the logic. Nothing too complicated here. What I will say is things can get extremely complicated here, depending on your application. And I'm not going to get into really complicated examples, but I will point out here that there's this little link that says, how do I use special functions? And there's some pretty good text here on how to set some of these things up. So kind of a classic example is using the date diff. If you wanted to send an automatic survey invitation at a certain period after somebody's completed an assessment. And like I said, I'm not going to get into it here, but it's a fairly common use case and it can be a little tricky. So if that is something you're trying to do, feel free to check out this link and read through this text. Otherwise, we have this little box here to ensure logic is still true before sending an invitation. Usually I will just check this. This is going to be another one of those things that's going to be project dependent. But let's say somebody completed this survey and said that they wanted to quit, but then for whatever reason, maybe they came back in or changed their mind or something and changed this to that they didn't want to quit. Well, the first time they complete the survey, as soon as this condition is met, the automatic survey invitation is going to be scheduled, and it's just going to send. So if you don't have this box checked, even if they go back in and change their answer here, it's going to be sent. So let's say they completed it and you wanted to send the invitation a week later, it'll be sent no matter what. However, if you do check this box, right before the invitation sends, REDCap will go back in and just double check this logic is correct. And if it has changed, then it will cancel that survey invitation. So it's just a handy little thing to know that it exists, and they've even actually gone so far to put in a little explanation here about how you may want to use this. And I've actually used this myself, where you can set up a particular field within your project called like a pause field or stop logic or kill switch. I don't know, all the different names I guess they've used. But basically, let's say you've been sending somebody an automatic survey invitation, or you want to send them an automatic survey invitation, but for some reason you just want to put a hold on it. You can go into their record and click this stop button to pause any kind of invitations. And again, that's where this check would come into play. So it's another one of those things that if you're curious about it, feel free to read through this text here, because it is pretty handy sometimes. Okay, so the next step then is very similar to what we saw with compose survey invitation. So you can send immediately, or you can schedule it to send at another time, or a time lapse, or an exact date. So not too complicated. And then we also have the option to send reminders. And once again, we can send up to 5 reminders. But once you're happy with, I'll put in a subject here just because. Once you're happy with all of these conditions, all you need to do is click active, and then you're good to go. And you'll see now that this little check mark is indicating that you have an active automatic survey invitation. Actually, one thing I will do here, instead of sending this immediately, I'll say to send this on the next day. Excuse me. Let's say at whatever, 4:24 is fine. Nope. Is it fine? There we go. 4:24 is fine. So basically 24 hours from right now. Because I just want to show how this looks. So I'm going to go back to my survey distribution tools and up to participant list. And oh, I haven't actually responded to this yet, so that's great. We can use this as an example. So this has been sent to my email, and in my email there is a link to open up the survey, but I'm not logged into my email right now, so I'm just going to click this link here, which is essentially the same thing. Once again, fill this out. I do live in Toronto, and I do smoke cigarettes, and I do want to quit. So once that's done, we'll say have a nice day. And we can check the survey invitation log here. And actually, you might remember from the previous video that when we checked the survey invitation log, we still had something. Oh wait, no, that's because we used the compose survey invitation. I just did this one right out of the gate here. So what we're seeing here, though, is we have the PHQ9 scheduled for tomorrow at 4:30. So this will just sit here until tomorrow, and then you could come in again tomorrow to verify that it has in fact been sent by excuse me, by clicking the past survey invitations here. And yeah, you'll see the previous one that I had sent out in the last video. Okay, so I think that does it for a pretty brief overview of the automated survey invitations. Perhaps it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I will say though, however, if you're creating a longitudinal project, or if you have lots and lots of surveys with complicated conditions here, that's where it can be a little complex, and even I still struggle with it sometimes if it's a really complicated project. But this should be enough to get you started, and don't forget to check out these extra help links if you need some more information. And in the next video, we'll look at another way to deploy surveys, this time not using emails, but going through the survey queue. So until then, I will see you next time.